they? How dare they tell a woman what she can do and cannot do with her own body?
The voice of the US Vice President Kamala Harris, echoing the fury that was evident across America last night, Democratic America at least, after the leak of a draft decision by the Supreme Court that looks set to strip women of their constitutional right to have an abortion. A right held in this country for nearly 50 years, but fought by conservative America in states that would overnight be given the green light to restrict or ban the procedure altogether.
If you stand for freedom, for the right to privacy, if you stand for these principles, stand with us.
Abortion is essential.
That's a cry to voters, because as devastated as the Democrats are by the potential ban, they're seizing on it as a way to go after the Republicans and hopefully galvanise women and young voters ahead of the upcoming midterm elections in November.
My rights are up for debate.
Which is precisely why Republican senators, ironically, aren't keen to talk about the likely ruling, only focusing on the fact it was leaked.
The biggest breach of security at the Supreme Court, that's just the history of the Supreme Court. I would think people would be outraged all over America.
The substance of the leak is surely far more important than the leak itself.
Don't draw any conclusion from what's been made public that that's the final document. So I'm going to wait until we get the final document.
Can I just ask you a very quick reaction to what happened yesterday, to the leaking of the draft and what it means for women in America?
Well, it means nothing, because it's not a final decision of the court. It's a draft opinion that was stolen. And
potentially it means everything. Potentially it's the stripping of a woman's right to abortion in America, isn't it?
I don't agree with you.
But potentially that's what it means, if the draft is anything to go by.
They might not want to talk, but the president was only too happy to warn today of the attack on personal freedoms that could follow an abortion ban.
What happens if you have a state changes the law saying that children who are LGBTQ can't be in classrooms with other children? What are the next things that are going to be attacked? Because this MAGA crowd is really the most extreme political organization that's existed in American history.
The MAGA crowd, remember them? Donald Trump's Make America Great Again diehards, who incidentally were out in force last night at the Republican primary race in Ohio.
Former president's endorsement that made all the difference in this race.
Where the Trump-endorsed candidate won the nomination.
I'm a never Trump
Ironically,
guy.
the hillbilly elegy author J.D. Vance wasn't always a Trump fan.
I didn't vote for Trump because I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious.
But once he'd openly apologized and kissed the ring, he was welcomed back. All of which speaks to Trump's ongoing influence, not just with political candidates, but at the Supreme Court too, where conservative justices he appointed look poised to upend America's abortion rights. No wonder the governor of Oklahoma felt empowered last night to sign into law an immediate ban on abortion after 6 weeks, with a second bill that would make performing an abortion a crime waiting in the wings.
Well, I'm joined now by Tamiya Cox Turret, who is Executive Director of the American Civil Liberties Union in Oklahoma. The state has just voted for one of America's toughest abortion bans. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. At the end of that report, we saw the Oklahoma governor signing that bill. You fought very hard against it and lost. I just wonder how you feel about that this evening.
We're extremely disappointed that this bill was signed into law. We have been anticipating Roe v. Wade being overturned or really diminished in June. However, knowing that we have a state law that's truly impacting abortion access has been what's been really tough for us in Oklahoma.
I mean, the Oklahoma governor, Kevin Stitt, makes, many people would argue, a good point. He says, I want Oklahoma to be the most pro-life state in the country because I represent all 4 million Oklahomans who overwhelmingly want to protect the unborn. He's an elected representative, and he said what he is doing is representing the views of his people, the majority of his people.
We know that is not the case. Governor Stitt does not represent a whole host of Oklahomans. In fact, we actually have done polling to show that a majority of Oklahomans don't want Roe v. Wade to be overturned. So he doesn't represent us. But more importantly, in a time where we are still in a pandemic, the idea that he is using as Oklahoma being the most pro-life state is unfortunate. It's a lie. It's not the case. And we continue to press on the governor as well as legislators that this is not the way to govern and not to legislate. And politicians have to stay out of healthcare decisions.
But the leaked draft of the Supreme Court ruling essentially says, the issue of abortion should be returned to the people's elected representatives. As someone who supports people's civil rights, how can that be wrong? It's democracy.
Well, we understand the importance of a representative government, but you also have to recognize that we are in a very gerrymandered state. So representation is already tough. But more importantly, we also know that the majority can't overcome the rights of the minority, regardless. And that is a tenet of U.S. American history, why we have the Bill of Rights, which is the sentiment that the ACLU of Oklahoma continues to fight and protect. So while, yes, moving these important rights back to the state is what he's trying to do and exactly what the court decision is about, but that should not trample the fundamental rights that we all hold closely to, especially the right of bodily autonomy.
But the problem is, where does the decision lie then? Because many pro-choice campaigners are arguing that the Supreme Court has become too politicized. You're suggesting that this shouldn't be, for elected representatives to decide. So who makes the choice?
We've said for so long that the court cannot be the backstop to fundamental rights as abortion. So organizations like the ACLU and Planned Parenthood in our state have been fighting for the legislature to codify Roe and to protect bodily autonomy and healthcare at the state level. But those decisions have to be left with personal capacity. People should be able to make these healthcare decisions on their own. And that is what we've been fighting for the longest. And we don't think that by any means conflicts with the state and US Constitution about personal healthcare decisions being made alone without governmental interference.
President Biden has been interfering, some might say, by saying he is vowing to defend women's rights on abortion. What can he do? How aggressive should the fight back be?
Right. We truly believe that the president as well as Congress actually has the power to make all of this go away by passing the Women's Health Protection Act, by executive orders that the president can find within his purview. There are ways that he could get involved. But the best thing that has to happen for Oklahomans and for Americans across the country is for us to say in one voice that these decisions should be left alone and should be personal. But that's just not where we are when we have extreme governors like Governor Stitt and extreme legislatures like the Oklahoma legislature that continues to interfere.
Very briefly, people are warning that this means the beginning of the erosion of other human rights, civil rights. Is that something you fear too?
We've been talking about this for a long time, and we actually see not just the beginning. We are seeing here in Oklahoma that we have had anti-trans legislation passed. So this idea of the right to marry is in jeopardy is very much a huge concern, and it's on the table now.
Tamiya Cox Turret, thank you very much for talking to us today.
Thank you.
Well, I'm joined now by the Republican strategist, Dina Williams. Now, although there are states where ending abortion is politically popular, most opinion polls have shown that overall America wants the freedom to choose, for women to be able to choose what happens to their own bodies. This could be very bad for Republicans, couldn't it? And maybe that's why Republicans seem very, reluctant to talk about it today.
I don't find Republicans reluctant to talk about it at all. I do think that most Republicans are certainly concerned about the leak, this unprecedented leak in our Supreme Court and would like to wait for the actual opinion to be rendered. So, and when that opinion is rendered, I think that you'll have the larger conservative Republican groups actually making statements. But at this point, I don't think anyone is comfortable with this leak. But if, you know, by and large, any Republican that has long supported overturning Roe, as I have, they are talking about it. I think that the concern is certainly this leak. And I would say that when you talk about most Americans would say that they did not want Roe overturned, but what many media outlets are not drilling down on is the nuance of at what point should abortion be on demand. And I think when, you know, by and large, most Americans do not believe that after 15 weeks, you should have on-demand abortions.
Is this Donald Trump's greatest legacy, do you think? Ending freedom for women?
I think, I don't think that this is taking freedom away from women, but I do believe, I'm sorry?
I mean, it is, straightforwardly, isn't it? It's going to end the right for women to have abortions in many states.
You know, I would strongly disagree with you. I think that Donald Trump's greatest legacy is protecting life. And as a person who works in the communications field, what I do with my clients is I encourage them not to use hyperbolic terms like comparing things to slavery, but I actually believe that abortion is as dangerous or to humanity as slavery, because I believe that babies are life. And even our president, and I have a great deal of respect for our American president, even if I didn't vote for President Biden, and he yesterday said that women should be allowed to abort their children. And if they are in fact children, which I believe they are, then I think that they should be protected. And it doesn't matter if they are inside of the womb or outside of the womb.
I mean, that is a minority definition of what a child is. But I mean, let's leave that for now. I mean, you know, as many people are saying.
Absolutely. I'm not. No, I won't. Well, I'm sorry.
You've expressed your view, and that's fine. I mean, I get that you think that.
You can redefine woman if you want to. You can redefine man if you want to. You can redefine child if you want to. But the fact of the matter is that at 15 weeks, if you want to abort what lives inside a woman's womb at 15 weeks, and I believe that you are aborting
and that's your view, and that's fine. Well, I want to broaden it, though, because, I mean, you know, a lot of people are raising questions of where's next. If it's women's rights in 2022, is it gay rights in 23, black rights in 24? What's next?
I believe that this legislation, that this decision, when it is rendered, and if it is in fact, and if Roe is in fact overturned, what will happen is that states will be able to decide. And if you look at 26 states across the country are revisiting Roe, and they're revisiting Roe because Americans largely believe that at 15 weeks, you should not have abortion on demand. And you can twist the language as much as you want to, but I will always stand on the side of life. I will always stand on the side of liberty.
I'm just trying to move it away from that topic. I'm just saying,
living inside of a mother's womb, or if you are living outside of a mother's womb.
I understand that, but I'm just saying the coalition of people, I'm just trying to move it on to that coalition of people who are against abortion. Many of them are also against gay marriage or gay teenagers going to classrooms with others, or frankly, segregation.
I have no idea where you're, I don't know what, sir, thank you so much.
It's which end of the wedge?
I don't even know what it means to be against gay teenagers. If you're talking about, if your audience wants to dig into the nuance, which the media doesn't often like to do, but if you're talking about parents being able to tell their children that having a sex change at 14 is not a wise decision, then yeah, there are a lot of Republicans and Democrats who don't believe in that. But I don't know what you mean when you say that Republicans are against trans children. There is absolutely nothing in that is truth. And that is the hyperbolic nature of the media that has divided not only my country, but yours as well.
Yeah, maybe you misheard me. I didn't say that. But I mean, we'll come back to this debate, I'm sure, another time. Dina Bass Williams, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much.